The year is 2004. The perfect speedrun of Super Mario Bros. Is published, a tool-assisted run by Phil and Genisto that beats the game in 18 minutes and 57 seconds. There's nothing to improve when all you can do is run and jump. In every level, Mario accelerates to full speed as fast as possible and never slows down. Except 20 years later, this seemingly perfect speedrun would be beaten by 21 seconds. This is the story of how the perfect Super Mario Bros. Speedrun came to be. This video is sponsored by Opera GX. What is Opera GX? Simple, it's the browser you should be using right now. Are you tired of your browser eating up 3 GB of RAM? Not anymore with GX Control. This is with the exact same tabs open. The difference is huge. Opera GX is also incredibly customizable. If that sounds a bit overwhelming, don't worry. Just use GX mods and transform your entire browsing experience in one click. Background music, keyboard sounds, opening and closing tab sounds, theme and colors, wallpaper, all of that can be changed. The portal lets you disable and enable mods from the sidebar from a selection of thousands of mods that you can explore or even create yourself. Opera GX is getting smarter too. If you want to get a gold split on your daily Read the News segment, it can summarize articles and shorten text for you by highlighting the text or from the address bar. If that's still not enough to convince you, you need to check out GX Corner. This will keep you up to date on free games, the best deals, new releases, and breaking news in the gaming world all in one place. Does your browser give you a curated list of currently available free games? I didn't think so. And look, I know switching browsers really sucks when you're so used to the one you're currently using. While switching to Opera GX is faster than Mario can BLJ to a parallel universe. Use the Quick Import tool for all your settings, history, bookmarks, and cookies from another browser. And don't be scared of losing your precious extensions. Opera GX is compatible with every single one of them. Thanks to Opera GX for sponsoring this video. Use my link in the description to download Opera GX today. Before we begin, let's clear up something. A tool-assisted speedrun, or task for short, is a sequence of button presses that is being played back. This sequence is created on an emulator with save states, that's the tool part, but it is by no means created by the computer or an AI. It's painstakingly pieced together, frame by frame, over the course of days, weeks, or even years. The result is the fruit of countless hours of planning, research, testing, and refining. Don't discount the work of the authors of a task. 20 years ago, on December 14, 2004, Phil and Genisto published a warpless task of Super Mario Bros. And set the benchmark for what a perfectly clean playthrough looks like. Beyond running and jumping, this run featured a few quirks. First, Mario grabs a mushroom in 1-2 and a fire flower in 1-4. This initially loses time, but that time is quickly made up by Bowser. If you kill him with fire, the bridge doesn't collapse when hitting the axe, which saves 132 frames. This game runs at just about 60 frames per second, so that's a bit over 2 seconds. Multiply this by 7 worlds and you can see the fire flower is well worth it. But why not 8? Simple, because the timing stops when the game is deemed beaten, which is on the frame Mario touches the final axe in 8-4, so there's no difference between having to watch the bridge collapse or not. Another important mechanic is the way Mario accelerates. In this game, Mario accelerates twice as fast in the opposite direction, so it's faster to face to the left and jump to accelerate to the right. This is done even more efficiently using a button combination unique to tasks, left and right. Mario is able to face left and accelerate to the right at the same time, allowing him to reach top speed about twice as fast and save a couple of frames on flat ground, sometimes more on stairs. There are only 2 major tricks in this run. The first is a wall clip in 4-4. This is a maze level, so you need to take a specific path through the stage. You're supposed to go over and back down like this, but with a wall clip, Mario goes down a bit quicker. At peak running speed, Mario moves by 2.5 pixels per frame, 2 on one frame, 3 on the other. If he's right next to a wall on one frame, he can move inside of it on the next. Normally, the game simply pushes him back out, and that's the end of the story. But the wall is made of individual blocks that are no different from any other solid block. If Mario crouches, jumps onto the top of this block, and moves into the wall by at least 2 pixels, he can find himself standing on the block. By releasing down, he uncrouches and ends up halfway inside the wall. At this point, the game ejects him from the wall by pushing him to the right until he falls on the other side. This trick was a well-known way to reach the minus world, but the fact that it could save time in a speedrun was groundbreaking. The second major trick is found in 8-4. For the same reason, Mario can find himself standing on a block that makes up the pipe. If he jumps on that frame, he can do a wall jump. This is called the wall jump room, but no one knows why. Also, in the next room, it's faster to scroll the screen just enough to set the destination of pipes to the water section and turn back to the nearest pipe rather than jump across to the intended one. This one is mysteriously called the turnaround room. After publishing the 1857 TAS, Phil and Genisto quickly realized that there was an optimization they left out with fast acceleration. To do a fast acceleration, you need to do a tiny one-frame jump so that you land as soon as possible. This is because Mario's speed has two different caps, a walking speed of 24 and a running speed of 40. Here, units of speed are in 16ths of a pixel per frame, also called subpixels per frame. Mario can only go past the walking speed cap if he's on the ground and B is held. So their strategy was to do a fast acceleration to reach 24 speed twice as fast, then run to 40. But they found out you can do better. If immediately after reaching 24 speed you use left plus right to turn around again, you can also accelerate from 24 to 40 twice as fast. Implementing this saved one extra frame for a total of 3. This new discovery, however, ended up not saving any time in most levels, except in 3-3, 3-4, 5-4, and 8-1, where it actually saved 21 frames instead. How is that possible? Because of frame rules. Whenever a level is completed, the game sets a timer to wait for the fanfare to finish and transition to the next stage. As with several other long timers, instead of counting individual frames, it counts multiples of a 21-frame cycle called the frame rule that runs all the time from power on. This means that for the entirety of the run, time can only be lost or gained in increments of 21 frames or 0.35 seconds. The only exception is 8-4 because timing stops when touching the axe. In this case, it just so happens that saving one extra frame meant that they could finish 3-3, 3-4, 5-4, and 8-1 one full cycle earlier, or one frame rule, but in every other level it didn't save enough time. Phil and Genisto also found that grabbing the fire flower in 1-3 instead of 1-4 would come out one frame rule faster. Finally, the improved fast acceleration saved 3 frames in 8-4 for a total improvement of 108 frames or 1.8 seconds. They published this 1855.86 2 weeks later on December 28, 2004. For years, that was the perfect run and nobody could touch it. Until late 2007 when TASer klmz made a groundbreaking discovery that would forever change the landscape of Super Mario Bros. Speedruns, the flagpole glitch. The level ending animation works like this. When Mario touches the flagpole, he and the flag both go down until one of two things happens. Either the flag reaches this point or Mario reaches this point. Then Mario jumps off the flagpole and walks to the castle until he bumps into a solid block, which triggers the timer counting down for points. And finally, the star flag comes out, sets a long timer, and transitions to the next stage. As you can see though, the base of the flagpole prevents Mario from meeting his height condition, so no matter where you grab the pole from, you always have to wait for the flag to go all the way down. It's unclear if this is a leftover from a removed mechanic, if the flagpole base was added later in development, or if this was incorrectly implemented in the first place. It's possible to touch the flagpole and meet the alternate condition to stop the flag from going down at the same time by clipping inside of the flagpole base. When Mario enters a block by a couple pixels, the game tries to push him out. As it turns out, the way it determines which way is out of the block is to look at Mario's speed. However, the collision with the block zeroes out his speed. By pressing left when entering the block, Mario ends up moving a tiny little bit to the left, not even enough to move by 1 pixel. But because he's moving left, the game pushes him to the right, pulling him further inside the block. This lets him grab the flagpole from inside the base, which triggers the special condition and stops the flag from going down. This glitch saves 20 frames over grabbing the flagpole normally. It could be used on nearly every single stage to save 1 frame rule, which very quickly adds up over the course of the run. All of a sudden, what seemed like a perfect run for years was improvable, and not just by a little bit. Although the discovery was made and implemented in any percent by klmz, the warpless TAS would eventually be improved a few months later by a beginner Super Mario Bros. TASer by the name of HappyLee. HappyLee found that the flagpole glitch could save time nearly everywhere, but not quite everywhere. 2-1 and 8-3 ran into issues with fireworks because the time spent clipping inside the base makes you grab the flagpole a few frames later than you would otherwise. In those levels, the flagpole glitch delays the level ending just enough that the remaining time ends in a 3 or a 6, which causes fireworks to go off and waste time. This new discovery ended up saving 23 frame rules. This giant time save would have been enough to make this a legendary improvement to the TAS, but HappyLee had one more trick up his sleeve. he decided to implement another recent discovery by klmz. It seemed inconspicuous at the time as it happened to perfectly break even with the optimal way to play 7-1 and it was only added for entertainment purposes. But this would mark the beginning of a new era for Warpless. This is the bullet bill glitch. Let's go back to what I said about the level ending sequence. Mario bumping into a solid block is what triggers the timer counting down for points. When doing the flagpole glitch, he jumps into the flagpole so he pops out the top of the base. However, the bounce from stomping an enemy is much lower than a jump. He can clip inside of the flagpole base near the top of the block because the top corners of blocks are intangible if moving upwards. Once he touches the flagpole, he's not high enough to pop out of the block so he gets ejected to the left. And because he's running into a solid block, the timer starts counting down for points, skipping the whole walk to the castle. This is also called the full flagpole glitch. It would be a huge time save, but unfortunately, because of all the time spent waiting for the bullet bill to get into the right spot, this ends up not saving any time. Similarly, the same trick could potentially be used in 5-1, but again, the time spent waiting for the bullet bill was too much, so it was slower than a regular flagpole glitch ending. However, 4 months later, HappyLee would be back with more ideas. He implemented the bullet bill glitch in 8-2 just like it had been used in any %. And this time, the bullet bill launcher is ever so slightly closer to the flagpole, so it does end up saving time, 2 whole frame rules. With a faster wall jump room and a faster turnaround room in 8-4, he was also able to pull off a few more frames of time save. But yet again, the best addition turned out to be something that didn't even save any time. This one was truly groundbreaking, a full flagpole glitch by clipping in the ground in 3-2 using a Koopa. Similarly to the bullet bill glitch, the huge time save is completely nullified by the long wait to set it up. Because clipping in the ground puts you lower, you don't pop out of the top of the flagpole base when you do a 1-frame jump into it, so you get the benefits of the full flagpole glitch. After klmz had shown that you could do something beyond perfect play to save time in Super Mario Bros., HappyLee had taken it another step further. What if you could find more ways to skip the walk to the castle, ways that would actually save time? 1 year later, in August of 2009, that question was answered, this time by 3 legendary players teaming up. klmz, the discoverer of flagpole glitch, adelikat, one of the most prolific members of TAS videos with already nearly 100 submissions to his name, and andrewg, the real-time world record holder in both Warpless and any %. andrewg discovered an incredible new glitch that he and klmz were able to put to use, the vine glitch. When left and right are pressed at the same time while Mario is climbing a vine, he warps all the way to the right edge of the screen. This inherently doesn't save time because of the extra time spent getting the vine out, but it does set up for a variation of the flagpole glitch. When Mario drops off the flagpole, that increases his horizontal position. However, he's already right up against the right edge of the screen, so his position overflows and wraps back around to the left edge of the screen. This is known as a page wrap. Over here, he bumps into this block, which triggers the timer counting down immediately. So this time, the first part of the level ending sequence isn't skipped, only the second part is. But the best part is, this could be used in several levels where a vine can be found. In total, they were able to do it in 3 places, 2-1, 3-1, and 6-2. They combined for 7 frame rules saved overall. On top of that, they corrected the mistake HappyLee had made in 3-4 where he lost 1 frame rule to slightly unoptimized movement, and klmz added 1 extra frame of time save in 8-4 for good measure. However, despite saving 8 total frame rules, they ended up only lowering the time by 7 frame rules or 2.4 seconds. As it turns out, their new improvements caused them to run into issues in 5-4 because of randomness. The randomness in Super Mario Bros. Is governed by a random number generation function that runs on every frame starting from power on. This means that after waiting for a specific number of frames after power on, the number this function returns will be consistent. To manipulate randomness, most of the time the only thing you can do is trigger a random event on a different frame. The initial position of the fire bars in castle stages is partly dictated by the RNG function. After improving 2-1, 3-1, and 3-4, they found that they entered 5-4 in a different frame, causing the fire bars to be in an extremely annoying location. No matter how much they tried, they couldn't get past them as fast as previous iterations of the task did, and so they had to sacrifice 1 frame rule in this stage, ending up only saving 7. This brought the time down to 1844.48. Now, HappyLee was not to be outdone. With a whole year of experience tassing Super Mario Bros. Now, he was becoming a force to be reckoned with. He quickly fired back with a string of crazy improvements of his own. Only 3 weeks later, he shocked the task community by submitting an 1841.7. The Vine glitch andrewg and klmz used in 2-1 and 3-1? Obsolete. HappyLee found other methods to get a full flagbow glitch in both levels. In 2-1, he clips into the ground thanks to this paratroopa jumping in the wrong direction. This can happen because when a new enemy is loaded, most of its properties are initialized but not all of them. As a result, enemies can inherit certain properties from whatever enemy was last in the same object slot in memory, including their vertical speed. When HappyLee stomps on this Goomba, that causes it to deload with a vertical speed of 0, which gets transferred to the paratroopa. A paratroopa loading with 0 vertical speed can sometimes turn around as it loads. And because it jumps to the right, it gets in the perfect spot for HappyLee to bounce on it and clip in the ground without having to wait for the right conditions. Well, almost the perfect spot. The only issue is that it would get there too fast for Mario to land on it in time unless he was further to the right on the screen. So HappyLee needed a quick way to achieve this displacement. He found the pipe clip. As we've seen already, Mario can clip in the top corner of a block. Once he's inside of it, the game ejects him to the right. Crucially, this displacement does not scroll the screen, so he ends up further right than he should. One pipe clip was just enough to get to the paratroopa in time for the ground clip, and it saved 2 frame rules over the vine warp. In 3-1, there's a Koopa all the way up the stairs, which could be used to set up a full flagbow glitch with a shell bounce, but it walks down too early to be used. The Koopa gets loaded when the screen reaches this point, so if Mario happens to be further to the right, he can reach the Koopa before it walks off and kick its shell. The vine glitch can't get Mario all the way to the right, but HappyLee opted to use a pipe clip instead. Both came out at the same speed, but the full flagbow glitch with the shell saved 3 frame rules over the page wrap. But that's not it. In 3-2, HappyLee found an even faster way of clipping into the ground by bouncing earlier on the Koopa, which allowed him to save another frame rule there. In 6-2, he improved upon the vine glitch by grabbing the vine earlier and by using this Koopa. Because Mario is so far to the right, he can stomp the Koopa before it starts going down the stairs, and he can use it to set up a full flagbow glitch instead of just a walk skip. Those 2 improvements combined to save 1 frame rule over the previous task. Finally, with these improvements, the bad 5-4 pattern was gone and the frame rule was saved back. Altogether, this run was an 8 frame rule improvement over the previous one, and HappyLee proved that he was the master of Super Mario Bros. Tassing. For quite a while, that was it for Super Mario Bros. Any % had been maxed out, and Warpless seemed like it too. But HappyLee does not give up. He knew the game could be pushed even further. For 2 years, he worked on his project of improving the Super Mario Bros. Tasks even more. In any %, the result of his hard work was 1 single frame, which to this day is the final improvement ever found in Super Mario Bros. Any %. But in Warpless, HappyLee had more tricks to show the world. On January 12, 2012, he unveiled his new iteration of the Warpless task and once again left the community speechless with another 3-second improvement, 1838.22. Most of the improvement came from one major discovery while tasking the minus world ending category. HappyLee manipulated the random pattern of cheap cheeps in 2-3 and 7-3 to get one in the perfect spot to bounce on and get a floor clip for a full flagbow glitch. He did this without even fully understanding how the random cheap cheeps even worked, by painstakingly trying combinations until they did exactly what he needed. In short, the exact way cheap cheeps fly into the stage depends on 3 things: the RNG value, the enemy slots that are currently being occupied by loaded enemies, and Mario's speed. RNG can't be reliably manipulated because it's deterministic and based entirely on the current frame. However, the timing at which Mario kills enemies can alter the flying cheeps. Finally, slowing down can slightly change the trajectory of the cheap cheeps to help them get into the right spot. Of course, he can't slow down an arbitrary amount without ending up wasting a frame rule, so this isn't very flexible. Using this new full flagbow glitch, he was able to save 4 frame rules in both levels for a total of 2.8 seconds. The rest of the time save was found in 7-1 on this full flagbow glitch. This Buzzy Beetle would be great, but unfortunately it wasn't as easy as in 3-1 because the Buzzy Beetle starts 1 block closer to go down the stairs, which means it has to be stomped on very shortly after loading it. For this to be possible, Mario needs to be close to the right edge of the screen, and sadly there's no vine in 7-1 to make this a piece of cake. Instead, HappyLee resorted to a crazy strategy. He clipped into block corners throughout the whole stage. Doing this repeatedly slowly inched him far enough to stomp on the Buzzy Beetle before it went down the stairs, allowing him to use its shell for a full flagbow glitch and save 2 frame rules over the bullet bill method. Finally, HappyLee's turnaround room improvement from any percent could be used here as well, and he added one extra frame in 8-4. However, he did have a slightly laggier 6-4 hammer pattern and lost 2 more frames to lag. This new warpless task finished with a total of 3.48 seconds saved over the previous run, and nearly 20 seconds faster than what was considered a perfect run in 2004. HappyLee happily called this the greatest Super Mario Bros. Run ever. It was unanimously acclaimed on TAS videos. Super Mario Bros. Had been put to rest. That remained the case for 6 years. There was no stage found to be improvable, or at least not enough to save a full frame rule until 2018. HappyLee teamed up with fellow TASer Mars608 to try and find a frame rule to save, but they quickly ran into a brick wall, or rather a firewall, in 6-4. If they did save one frame rule, they would enter 6-4 at a different time with a different RNG value, and that would cause this firebar to be in the way, wasting their efforts. Therefore, if they wanted to save any time over the existing task, they needed to find not 1, but 2 frame rules of time save. Levels with potential included a few of those that were 1 frame away from saving the frame rule, like 1-1 and 4-4, and levels with more complex strategies and movement. 4-4 especially, with the wall clip, the firebar that you have to go under, and the Bowser fight, was maddeningly close, but HappyLee had exhausted every idea he could think of. So, HappyLee and Mars608 turned to World 1. It had always been known that the power-ups in 1-2, 1-3, and 1-4 were overall the fastest to get the Fire Flower before the first Bowser. HappyLee would get the Mushroom in 1-2 and the Fire Flower in 1-3, but he found that getting the Mushroom in 1-3 and the Fire Flower in 1-4 would come out even. In fact, it was only 3 frames away from saving an extra frame rule and being actually faster. To save that time, HappyLee calculated that they needed to find a way to get the Fire Flower at running speed. Mars608 figured out that by taking extra time to let the block push Mario to the left more, he had more room to accelerate before jumping into the Fire Flower, which came out faster overall. HappyLee and Mars608 slowly and secretly worked on the task to keep improving it, intending to submit the task videos as soon as they would be done. But on the morning of March 17th, they found that they had been beaten to the punch. The warpless task had been improved. They were beaten to it by MrWint, who used a brute forcing script to optimize specific sections of the run. Using that tool, he independently came up with the faster 1-4 flower grab. However, the 6-4 firebar meant that for this improvement to matter, he needed to find another one as well. As it turns out, he was also able to find the one missing frame of time save in 4-4 that had eluded HappyLee for 6 years. The key element he had been missing all this time was jumping earlier and hitting the corner of this wall instead of the bottom. The most optimal method is so precise, Mario's position has to be within 1 subpixel, 1/16th of a pixel, for it to work. On top of that, sliding under this firebar without getting hit had a margin of less than half a pixel. Thanks to MrWint's brute forcer, this time save was finally materialized. HappyLee and Mars608 were shocked to find that this task by MrWint used a time save that they hadn't been able to figure out because their task was actually about to be exactly tied with his. They had been holding on to something rather incredible that even with brute forcing tools, MrWint had not managed to solve, a frame rule save in 6-2. In 2012, HappyLee left that stage 10 frames away from saving a frame rule. He commented, "I'm sort of sure there's no possible improvement left in this stage." But upon revisiting it in 2018, HappyLee found a myriad of tiny little optimizations. He managed to hit the block and grab the vine earlier than before, and crucially used left, right, and down when doing the vine glitch so that on top of warping to the right edge of the screen, Mario climbs down a bit, falling to the ground faster. This saved 4 frames over his previous iteration. Then, he discovered that by jumping from the pipe instead of the block, he could stomp the Koopa earlier and kick the shell faster. That saved another 4 frames, and he found himself 2 frames away from saving a frame rule. That lit a fire under him. If he could just hit the shell 2 frames earlier, there would be an improvement to his perfect warpless task. He tried all the combinations and manipulations he could think of, but it simply did not happen. He even revisited the vine and found 1 extra frame of optimization, bringing the level down to a single frame away from saving time. But if he wanted to save time on the Koopa shell, he still needed to hit it 2 frames earlier because Mario can only interact with it every other frame. He was so close and yet so far. The fire died down and he gave up on it. It took extra motivation to push him further, and that came from none other than Kosmic setting a warpless real-time record of 1902 on January 29, 2018. With renewed hope, HappyLee revisited 6-2 once again. He found that he could use backwards acceleration on the jump just before the vine grab. To his surprise, this came out even with his previous strategy, but with the key added bonus, Mario ended up 2 pixels further to the right after the vine warp. He knew those 2 little extra pixels had to be the key. He exhaustively searched the Koopa shell kick again, and this time it worked. He kicked the shell 2 frames earlier, got the flagpole glitch 2 frames earlier, and 6-2 was completed 21 frames faster. All they needed to do was to implement it into their task along with the faster 4-4 to improve the run some more. But again, things weren't so simple. Again, they faced the unavoidable 6-4 firebar. If HappyLee and Mars608 ever wanted to improve Super Mario Bros. Warpless, they had to come up yet again with an entirely new time save. On the bright side, all they needed was 1 extra frame rule and they would get a favorable pattern again. But on the other hand, every possibility had been exhausted. This was a massive blow for HappyLee. All hope seemed lost until Mars608 reminded him of another pipe dream that had been shelved before due to unfavorable RNG, the 5-1 bullet bill glitch. By hacking RAM values to force the cannon to shoot to the right as soon as possible, HappyLee found that it was possible to set up a bullet bill glitch that would save 1 extra frame rule over the current task. Actually getting the cannon to shoot at the right time was an impossible task to him all those years ago, but times had changed. HappyLee had teamed up with Mars608 and their level of knowledge was much better than before, aided by complete documented disassembly of the game's code. They knew where to look and they knew how to look. So it was perhaps no surprise that Mars608 was able to get the cannon to fire optimally, but it definitely came as a surprise that he got it within 13 minutes of searching. The randomness of bullet bill launchers is mostly dictated by 2 things, the RNG value and the state of the first 3 enemy slots. By killing enemies a certain way and leaving some enemies alive, Mars608 was able to get the cannon timer to exactly the value they needed. And with that, they finally had another frame rule save. And that was enough. They now had 2 frame rules over MrWint's task and 4 over HappyLee's 2012 task. They finished up the rest of the run, adding the craziest entertaining gameplay they could think of, getting rid of every single lag frame, and finally submitted the ultimate tool-assisted speedrun of Super Mario Bros. Warpless in 1836.78. This speedrun clocks in at 1833.5 using the timing methods real-time speedruns use, 21 seconds faster than the current world record by Nifsky, 20 seconds faster than what people thought was perfect in 2004. This run is a true testament to the dedication and creativity of tool-assisted speedrunners and the proof that the limits are never where we think they are. 6 years later, this has never been improved, and there's no telling if it ever will be.